Okay, next week's presentation. Next week's presentation by the one and only. To know her is to love her. Stop hiding your face, Kat. Kat Miller will be back with us. Inside Out Aging. So the truth is, if we are fortunate, we will have the opportunity to grow old, experience along the way inevitable losses and increasing limitations, as well as progressive refinement of what is essential. With aging, we can see our life as, from a great altitude as a sort of landscape with all its diverse parts connected. From here, we can harvest wisdom, acknowledge resilience, and discover peace, compassion, and gratitude at the heart of our lives. Join CAP for some ageist repudiation and to learn more about how we can cherish the beauty of life, not despite its perishability, but precisely because of it. Now, Kat Miller has an MA in spiritual psychology and is a counselor here in Ahihit and abroad. She currently plays with photography and writing as ways to express her perception of today's topic. So please come next week and listen to Kat. She's an excellent speaker. And you probably know that she will be back. Yes. Thank you for your vote of confidence. No, Kat and I, we're in discussion, we're in negotiation, all right? Okay, so this week's presentation. Now, this week's presentation, Michael Reason, A Melody for Change. Now, throughout history, music has often reflected social and political change. However, since the beginning of the 20th century and the advent of recorded sound, music has become a catalyst for change. Pianist and conductor Michael Reason will lead us on a journey to discover how music has become a driving force in shaping the world for the past 100 years. Now, after leaving music college, Michael worked on numerous theatrical productions as music director in England during the 1980s and emigrated to Canada in 1991. Since then, he has had a highly successful career as a professional orchestra conductor, working with orchestras across Canada, Mexico, Europe, and Asia. In addition, he has held the position of music director of the Prince George Symphony, the Niagara Symphony, and the Hamilton Philharmonic in Canada. He now lives in Ahihit, where he helped found the Lake Chappelle Community Orchestra in 2018, and has assumed the roles of conductor and artistic director. He is also the music director for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Riberas. Please give a warm and safely distant welcome to Michael Reason.
I think I'm on. Yes. Can you all hear me? Just wave your hand if you can't. No, if you can't, Tom. Thank you very much, Phil, for that introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here once again at Open Circle. I was here, I think, the week before the pandemic shut everything down last year, and I was delighted to be asked to give another talk here on a music subject, but a different musical subject from the last one. Now, I know Phil said to you, please switch off your phones, but I'm going to ask you to turn them on again. There's a very specific reason for this. When I first did this, constructed this talk, it was for another organization, and they had audio-video equipment there, and all the musical examples that I give were video examples, or most of them were. And of course, it's very difficult to do video here in the open air. So I thought, well, how can I get people to be able to see the images as well as hear the music? Now, hearing the music is fine. It's going to come through the speakers. But if you have a phone, okay, you switch it on, open your web browser, and then you type in this address, Vimeo, that's Vimeo and then // with the following number, 534979789. I'll repeat it again. So you've got Vimeo, vimeo.com, / the number 534979789. If you're connected to the 4G network, it should come up with a picture of Billie Holiday. Who has it? Fantastic. If you don't, please share it with somebody. The videos do not have sound. Okay, the sound you will hear from here. And there may be a slight lag, so you may see Billie Holiday's mouth move and the words are half a second later, but that's the best I could do, put it that way. Okay, everybody ready for this? All right. Yes, the number. Yes, the number is 534979789. Now, with that, you have a video thing that's about 15 minutes. When I ask you to press the play button, all right, press it. At the end of the video clip, you will see a little screen that comes up with a melody for change. Press the pause button. I will give instructions during this, so you press the pause button. And then when I say press play, you play it again, and so on. Now, to enjoy the talk, you do not have to see the videos. It just enhances what I'm about to say. All right, that out of the way. Just listen. Don't press play or anything. Just listen to this little clip of music. Music throughout history has often reflected social and political changes. This has certainly become more prevalent since the beginning of the 20th century. What you just heard was an excerpt from the Czech composer Antonín Dvořák's Ninth Symphony, one of the most beloved works in the orchestral repertoire. Composed in 1893, it is tuneful, pleasant, and musically very comfortable, perhaps a reflection of the world that the composer found himself in. With the turn of the century, major advances in industrialization and society started to happen. The development of the automobile and the achievement of manned flight are but two inventions that contributed to a changing rhythm of society. Music followed rapidly, reflecting a new forward momentum. 20 years after Dvořák's comfortable and tuneful New World Symphony, the world heard this. Don't press play. Anybody recognize that piece of music? The first performance of Stravinsky's music for the ballet The Rite of Spring, an excerpt of which you just heard, created a riot in the theatre. This barbaric, dissonant, and violently rhythmic music was just too overwhelming for the cultured Parisian audience. The sounds and power of increased industrialization were being reflected in music, pushing traditional harmonic and melodic creativity to its limit. The cliff edge was finally reached after the horrors of the First World War. A new world order and the immense change to society that followed the end of the war contributed to the complete breakdown of tonal music. The Austrian composer Arnold Schoenberg finalized this breakdown of tonality by eschewing traditional composition and created a technique of composing that was basically mathematical in design. For each piece, he created a theme comprised of the 12 tones of the chromatic scale. The theme would only use each tone once, in any order desired. What followed would be a musical development of this theme throughout the duration of the composition. The result was the complete dissolution of 300 years of traditional musical composition. That was an excerpt from Schoenberg's 5 orchestral pieces. Now, fortunately, this mathematically induced compositional style did not endear itself to too many followers and eventually would fall out of fashion. But Stravinsky and Schoenberg created music that was a reflection of the society in which they lived. But in the coming decades, music would turn around from being reflective to a driving force for change, both politically and socially. Now, this, of course, probably requires a week's worth of talks to cover it all. So instead, I'm going to take 3 examples to illustrate how music in the 20th and 21st centuries facilitated change. The 20th century saw the development of more genres of music than the previous 4 centuries put together. What helped this was the development of radio, records, and television. These technological advances quickly made the world a smaller place, and music could be distributed on a much larger scale. It is not surprising, therefore, that music now had the potential to affect change. The first example I would like to share goes back to 1939, and one song that in many ways started a movement that continues to this very day. Until the late 1930s, music hadn't directly confronted the issues of racism and segregation. Then along came Billie Holiday's recording of Strange Fruit. The founder of Atlantic Records, Ahmet Ertegun, called it a declaration of war and the beginning of the civil rights movement. The song is a stark depiction of black bodies hanging from a tree after a lynching. Back then, popular song wasn't a place for brutal truths, and Holiday would have been well aware of the trouble Strange Fruit could create. She later described the audience reaction when she first performed the song. You know, there wasn't even a patter of applause when I finished. Then a lone person began to clap nervously. Then suddenly, everyone was clapping. So, get your phones ready and get ready to press that button. And don't forget that when the clip ends and you see the Melody for Change screen, press the pause button. You can press it now.
Southern trees bear strange fruit.
Powerful stuff. I hope you press pause. That song went on to sell over 1 million copies. The clue to its power is the way the lyric simply describes the scene, making us, the listener, take it at face value. Without suggesting solutions or even to inform of the extent of the problem, Strange Fruit simply instills feelings of disgust and deep sadness. Many of those affected by the song went on to march together in support of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and their grandchildren are now doing the same for the Black Lives Matter movement. There is no doubt that Strange Fruit had an immense impact on the way people thought about race, and in no small way helped to create a change in racial attitudes. Societal change and prejudicial attitudes would come front and centre when Berry Gordy founded Motown Records in 1959. Berry's label really showed how music could change people's perceptions and make political statements that would contribute to the anti-war and anti-poverty movements of the late 60s and early 70s. Under Gordy's leadership, black artists were given opportunities that just a few years before would have been absolutely unthinkable. The creative soul pop of Motown artists like Smokey Robinson, The Temptations, and the Jackson 5 won hearts not just in the United States, but around the world. Suddenly, closed minds were open to the idea that African American musicians were just as worthy of attention as their white counterparts. And I'm going to ask you to press play right now. And press pause. I'm sure you all know what that was. Get Ready by The Temptations. As its artists matured, Motown released music that went beyond pop and into the realm of social and environmental awareness, political protest, and a re-energizing of black pride. I'm going to ask you to press your play button right now.
Whoa, oh, mercy, mercy me.
And you can press your pause button. That was the late, great Marvin Gaye and his song Mercy, Mercy Me, lamenting about the state of the world and the ecological state of the world, and it is still relevant today. That was recorded in 1972. As its artists matured, Motown released music that went, I've said that bit, I'll start again. The groundbreaking work by this generation of African American artists would continue through to the 21st century with rap and hip hop. Music has also made leaps and bounds for gender equality. The past 30 years has seen a long history of songs that have stood up for women's rights, but back in 1963, this song felt shocking to many as the image of the subservient woman gets turned on its head. And you can press your play buttons now. And you can press pause now. When I first heard the song, Leslie Gore would later say, I was 17 and feminism wasn't quite a going proposition yet. My take on the song was, hey, I'm 17 and what a wonderful thing to be able to stand on a stage and sing to everyone that you don't own me. Gore's spirit has lived on through every woman who has ever decided they wouldn't be told what to do by men, promoted musically through the likes of Aretha Franklin's R.E.S.P.E.C.T. and to the inspiring pop of the Spice Girls and Destiny's Child. Just imagine young girls all over the world in 1996 watching Slack-jawed as the Spice Girls ran amok in some dusty mansion, somersaulting across the deserts and making snooty old men blush, all the while singing about female friendship and empowerment. And you can press your start buttons now.
Yo, tell me what I want, what I really, really want. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
And you can press your pause button. Yes, songs like Wannabe had the effect of making young women the world over more determined that they will not be ignored. It's a spirit that today is exemplified by the likes of Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift, powerful women seizing total creative control and bending the music industry and society to their vision. Music can be considered just about the fastest acting agent of change on society imaginable. A song has the ability to turn the status quo on its head. This can be seen very clearly in the changing attitude towards human sexuality in the 1970s and 80s. Of course, there had been artists before the 70s performing material that touched on same-sex attraction. You can even go back to 1928 when the pioneering blues singer Ma Rainey recorded Prove It On Me Blues with the following lyrics. Went out last night with a crowd of my friends. They must have been women, because I don't like no men. Wear my clothes just like a fan, talk to girls just like any old man. Because they say I do it, ain't nobody caught me. Sure gotta prove it on me. It was, however, 2 decades from 1970. It was, however, the 2 decades from 1970 where artists and their music managed to bring LGBTQ lifestyle into mainstream culture and consequently an acceptance of it by a wider society. So please press play again. And you can press pause. That song, Stonewall Nation, dates back to 1971 and was written and performed by Madeline Davis. Davis is a lifelong gay rights activist and wrote the song after attending her first gay civil rights march. The song, widely recognized as the first gay liberation record, and its uncompromising lyrics, which demand freedom rather than just acceptance, celebrate the resilience and potential power of radical gay activism. On the other side of the Atlantic, a year later in 1972, David Bowie would shock Britain with a live performance of Starman on the hugely popular Thursday evening show Top of the Pops. With the conservative British public still not used to the idea that homosexuality was now legal in England and had been since 1967, Bowie created an outrage at 2 minutes and 17 seconds into the song by draping his arm around guitarist Mick Ronson. And I will illustrate at the precise moment. Press play.
I had to phone someone, so I picked on you.
And you can press pause once more. Today, we can't really imagine how Bowie's actions could offend anyone, but back then, the BBC was bombarded with complaints. The indignation of parents would only endear the otherworldly Bowie to their children. For the generation that would spawn the out-gay pop stars of the 1980s, Bowie's outrageous campery and sexual androgyny was a revelation. And for many watching on that Thursday evening, life would never be quite the same again. Bowie paved the way for so many artists whose music made a contribution to the LGBTQ movement. Artists like Prince and Madonna were the Bowies of the 80s, and today we have musicians such as Sam Smith, Melissa Etheridge, Adam Lambert, and Brandi Carlile, who are openly gay and proud of it. Music really did make a huge change to society's acceptance and understanding that there is no normal to sexual orientation. Finally, if there was one musical event that changed the entire world, then it must have been the one held on Saturday, July the 13th, 1985. In October 1984, the BBC transmitted a report showing images of hundreds of thousands of people starving to death in Ethiopia. Michael Burke, the reporter, described it like this: a biblical famine in the 20th century and the closest thing to hell on earth. The report shocked the UK. It also shocked Bob Geldof, lead singer of the Boomtown Rats. And in an effort to help the starving population, persuaded many of his musical contemporaries to collectively record a single called Do They Know It's Christmas, under the all-embracing group name of Band Aid. The record became the fastest-selling single ever in Britain and raised $14 million for the relief effort. Emboldened by the success, Geldof and his fellow organisers, Midge Ure of U2 and Boy George of Culture Club, set their sights on a massive concert event that would be held simultaneously in the United Kingdom and the United States. The result was Live Aid. Many of the most famous musicians across the globe donated their service to perform at the concerts. On the same day, concerts inspired by the initiative were held in other countries, including the Soviet Union, Australia, Canada, Japan, and West Germany. It was one of the largest scale satellite link-ups and television broadcasts of all time. And get this, an estimated audience of 1.9 billion people across 150 countries watched the live broadcast. That, at that time, is nearly 40% of the world's entire population. At the event's core was music. And in raising $127 million on that one day, the world collectively came together with a humanitarian consciousness for the disaster happening on the African continent. Press your play button now. And you can press pause for the last time. After the event, Bob Geldof ultimately said, "We took an issue that was nowhere on the political agenda, and through the lingua franca of the planet, which is not English but rock and roll, we were able to address the intellectual absurdity and the moral repulsion of people dying of want in a world of surplus." And that is why he became Sir Bob Geldof. During the past 30 minutes or so, we have, in a small way, explored how music has transformed from not only being a reflection of society's changes, but also as a vehicle capable of influencing political agendas, human attitudes, and sexual freedom. I am well aware that there are a multitude of artists and songs that could have been included in this presentation, and I'm sure you all have examples of music that help to create a change in society. So if you'd like to stay until next Saturday, we could run through them. But finally, I would like to leave you with one video and song that shows how, even after 50 years since its release, a song can still have power and meaning to a society that still needs to find its way through the challenges it faces. The classic song, What's Going On, by Marvin Gaye, truly encapsulates, both in 1972 and now in 2021, why we always need a melody for change. You can press your play button now.
Hey, what's happening?
Brother, what's up?
This is a big party, man.
Yeah,
I
brother,
can
like,
dig it.
stop right on.
Hey, man, what's your name?
For those of you that weren't able to see the video that went with that song, it is a collection, it's a montage of pictures really going back to the 60s, to Martin Luther King Jr. and the assassinations of the Kennedy brothers, right through to the present day, including the January 6th storming of the Capitol building. And it ends with somebody holding up a sign that says, God bless humanity. An incredibly powerful song that always moves me every time I hear that. I'd like to thank you for being a very attentive audience. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today and showing you how music can truly affect change in our society. And music also is an art form, like many other art forms, that makes us feel good. This is why the concerts that Steve is doing here, the concerts in the park, make us feel good, because we've been through a rough time over the past 12 months. And to be able to get out into this beautiful environment and enjoy music collectively is one of life's great experiences. And I'm a sucker for self-promotion. But on May the 30th, here on this stage, there is a show that I put together called Back to Broadway. And my very first really musical experiences as a music director was in music theatre. And that is where I met my wife, doing a production of Chicago way back in the 1980s. And I put together this show called Back to Broadway, which features some of the most amazing songs from a panoply of musical shows from Broadway, with 3 truly amazing singers, and you will get a full orchestral backing. Now, we're not going to have a full orchestra, but I've been working on creating or reproducing original backing tracks for these. So you will hear the songs as they were meant to be heard with full orchestral sound. The tickets are, I think, 300 pesos. It's a 6 o'clock performance. And I know some of you may say, well, aren't you doing this show in Riberas at the Unitarian Church? Yes, we are. But you know what? It's basically sold out. And that's 3 weeks away. So I'm so glad that Steve offered to mount it here, an encore performance. That's Sunday, May the 30th at 6 o'clock. Tickets are available as you leave Open Circle. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And I am very, very willing to take any questions. Thank you.